It was, it was the phone call you never want to get. Our daughter, Kat, had been in a terrible car accident, and when we found out that she was partially paralyzed, we were devastated.
I remember it was around 3 o'clock in the afternoon. I was picking up the kids from school, and my husband Jim called. So the first thing he asks me is, "Are you sitting down?" He told me he lost his job.
A few months ago, I had to relocate for work. Then my car broke down.
My husband and I just split up, and he was in charge of all of the bills.
My business had 2 major contracts fall through, and suddenly I had major cash flow issues. I was forced to use credit cards just to survive. Eventually, I couldn't afford to stay ahead of the payments. I fell farther and farther behind, and I was so discouraged it felt like everything I worked for was slipping away.
But we went right to work to make life as normal as possible for her. Tim took time off to make our house completely wheelchair friendly. He was out of work almost 3 months, and we ran up more than $40,000 in home improvement credit card charges. And pretty soon the bills were more than we could handle, and we just started to fall behind.
First I thought it would be very temporary, so we didn't really cut back on our expenses. The kids were still going to their Little League practice, and we even bought a dog with our savings. Jim was still out of a job, and I had picked up some freelance work, but it wasn't enough to cover mortgage and groceries and car, all the important things. $45,000 in credit card debt. You know.
I was chasing my payments, and I couldn't figure out how to get ahead of them. I was feeling overwhelmed, lost, and just really, really unhappy.
Overdue credit cards. That's where it all started. I didn't even realize that there was a problem. My debt got so bad, I was embarrassed to talk about it. Not even to friends or family, people that were closest to me. I tried to get a loan to pay the whole debt off, but the interest rate was too high.
Eventually, my home went into foreclosure. That was the last straw. I felt like I'd let my wife and kids down, not to mention how I felt about myself. And it's even hard to describe to you all that was going on inside my mind. I was so much in debt. I had no idea where to turn.
It was actually my sister who first told me about my other options I didn't even realize I had.
After stumbling upon numerous websites, one really stood out to me. That one was the Debt Relief Center.
When I learned that there was help, I have to be honest, I was nervous at first. This is a big deal.
I mean, we even thought about bankruptcy. But when we found out that there was a debt relief hardship program that we could qualify for, it was like this just huge weight had been lifted off our shoulders. And combining all of our high interest debt into one lower payment that we could handle, I mean, it just made all the difference for us.
I didn't know much about it at all, but after just speaking on the phone, I knew it was the right path for us.
I found out that I qualified for relief. I saw how much I could be saving each month and how much faster I could pay off my debts. Now I know that there's a light at the end of the tunnel, and I can plan for the future.
I'm glad I didn't go with bankruptcy. I feel relieved. I feel good.
It's been about 2 years to this day we spoke with a counselor. Now that is one phone call that I cherish. Things are back to normal now, and we learned so much. What I realized going through all of this is that it's so easy to get into debt and be stuck, just barely scraping by. When we were going through the worst of it, if you had told me I would be here telling you how we get out of our debts and put all of that behind us, I would never have believed you. But here we are today with huge weight off our shoulders. We are so happy we overcame our debt.
It was like a huge weight was lifted off my shoulders. I said to myself, I'm seeing this all the way through. I'm getting out of this debt, and I got to tell you, it feels so good.
The thing about debt is that it is just so devastating, one, and embarrassing. And it isolates you. You know, you find yourself hiding. You are not just hiding from your friends and, your family, but sometimes, your coworkers, and then in some cases even creditors, like avoiding phone calls, avoiding emails, throwing bills in a drawer because you can't stand looking at them and they're there, and it's just this monster that's growing and growing and getting scarier and scarier and taking you over and trapping you. And the big thing that helps you get out of it is asking for help, which is obviously the conundrum, because it's the hardest thing to do, is to ask for help because you're so embarrassed and you're so ashamed. But it's also the very thing that's keeping you trapped and keeping you in hiding. And the first step out is to say, I need help. I have made some mistakes. And that's when it all starts to crack open. That's when you start really realizing that not only are there people who are smarter about this than you and actually know how to help you and can give you actually specific and deliberate ways to change your situation, but a lot of them know that because they were where you were. And they know how to get out of debt because they were in debt, and they aren't judging you, and they completely understand, and they have a heart full of compassion and a mind full of good ideas, and they can reach out to you. And when you take that step, you're no longer alone, you're no longer hiding. And then when you start doing that, suddenly you realize that you can help other people. They say, when the time is right, the teacher appears, and when the time is right, the student appears, and you can find yourself on both sides of that equation, and that is a great thing.